Welcome to In the Kink of Things podcast. What came to me this morning was that everybody has a kink. It looks very different for every single person because everyone is unique and everyone has the unique combination of likes and dislikes, desires, explorations, and curiosities. And for some people, that may be considered very vanilla, which just means plain. But even within that sphere, if you look at the flavor of vanilla ice cream, there's not just one vanilla flavored ice cream. There's French vanilla, bourbon vanilla, there's with specs. There's so many different vanilla varieties, and then you throw in a little bit of caramel sauce or some peanuts or just something else that makes it a little bit different. And vanilla itself isn't bad. Like we put vanilla extract into so many things because it just adds to the overall flavor. It just gives it a little bit of that lovely, smooth, supportive undertone that just elevates the whole thing. So don't ever decide that just because something is normal or vanilla that it should be put away on a shelf. How can you use that to enhance what you're doing? How can you add things in or take them away or move them around or change it up? And it just doesn't really matter what it looks like as long as it is in alignment with you. And then if you're playing with a partner, is in alignment with your partner, or at least in alignment enough that there's enough overlap of resonance that it works. I've had situations where certain things were definitely overlapping, and then in other areas we were talking completely different languages. There's a thing called a love language where it prescribes 5 or 6 different areas of how you express and how you receive love. I never remember all of them by list, but one of them is like verbal affirmations, one is receiving or giving gifts, one is act of service. Look it up. There's a whole bunch of things online around that, but knowing that about yourself, again, that self-awareness, how do you express yourself? How do you wish to receive that expression of love, connection, kindness? Is so important, because if you don't understand yourself, how can you expect someone else to understand you? If you don't give yourself the things that light you up, the things that make you be in love with yourself, how can you expect someone else who isn't in your inner world to understand or be able to give you those things that enhance your experience, that help you to have that little extra vanilla extract in your interaction, in your experience, in your day? If you don't know that that's the type of vanilla you want to add, or that's the type of kink you want to add, or this is what you love, this is what you absolutely detest and really don't want to do, and someone else like, oh, I don't mind that at all, I'll take that over from you so you never have to do it again. Act of service. I know I feel like I'm repeating myself here, but we need to hear it more. We do need to hear it more until it gets into our subconscious, into our heart, into our inner space. That the awareness of ourselves is the key to our happiness. And for me, that awareness also includes the world of kink. that includes the world of sensuality, sexuality, of expression, of working with the energy, and not just in the bedroom, also in my daily life. And it doesn't mean I'm going to dress provocative or sexy and, expect everybody to look at me all the time. No, what that means is that I am cultivating my inner world in such a way that I am building the energy. I am grounding my system physically, mentally, and emotionally. I'm aware of what is going on. And when thoughts come into my head, that I'm like, where did this come from? And sometimes they're scary. The other day I woke up and I felt really down. I felt really sad and depressed. And I didn't want to go out of bed. And I thought about slitting my wrists. I have an amazing life. I have no idea where that thought bubbled up from. But because I'm aware of myself, I was like an observer. Isn't that interesting that this is coming up? I'm not sure why, not sure where. It's not really something for me to figure out. And when that happens, what I do is I come back to the breath. I breathe deeply, calmly, and deeply. I said that again. But just to calm my nervous system down, just to move that energy and allow that expression of that feeling, not just pushing it down, that that is obviously something stuck in my nervous system somewhere. Whether it's from someone else feeling that or from me feeling that in the past. And it's coming back up because it hadn't been fully processed and fully expressed. So breath, breathing. And then I was like, well, there's nothing I can do about it. I'm not going to follow that thought. I'm not going to fulfill the action that would come after it. So I'm going to get up and get on with my day. And I ended up doing a guided meditation. I ended up doing some breakfast things that I do. And then I went back over some notes. And I shifted the energy with my focus. Because I stopped focusing on that feeling. Because there wasn't anything I was going to do about it. I wasn't going to try and figure it out. Because the more I focus on it, as we know, it enhances it and empowers it. It just makes it bigger, brings it more into your life. So, how could I shift? And sometimes that means ignoring it, thinking it's funny, laughing at it, making it hilarious. It's like, isn't that interesting? That came up again. Moving on. And I know when you're in that space, that can be really, really challenging and hard because the whole world seems to be gray and dismal and bleak. But if it's gray and dismal and bleak, you might as well walk through it, get out of the rain, and find the rainbow. And if that rainbow means you have to draw it on paper with some color and crayons, then do so. Because we all deserve to have a little rainbow in our lives. And if you have to create it yourself, then we create it ourselves. But yeah, this is part of life. The more we expand, the more we dive into our feelings, the more we feel everything, not just the good and happy. We also feel the down and out and all the spectrum. That's what we're here for as humans, to feel everything. This is one of the reasons why I'm not just into sensuality, into sexuality. I'm also opening up the spectrum to open up that exploration into what's considered kinky. Because why not? There's so much more to explore, and it doesn't mean you have to use every tool in the toolbox. It just means you have to be open to pick up a tool, look at it, watch someone else use it, and like, does that work for me? No, no, really don't like that sensation, really don't like that. Put it away, pick up something else, play with it. You find some things that really work for you, and if all that is sensual touch, amazing. You figured out what really turns you on, what your body loves, what you love, what brings you joy into your life. That's what this is about. Enhancing joy, enhancing the experience we love. This is why we have the full spectrum of experiences, of emotions, so that we can tell, I don't like this, I really love this. But unless we try, unless we feel, unless we open ourselves up to those feelings, we won't know. And then we're just bleakly going through life waiting for something to happen, waiting for those huge spikes, the chaos or the ecstatic love moments or the drug-induced fantasy, not fantasies, but the drug-induced euphoria. Nothing wrong with that. They can be amazing if done in the right setting and with the right people. They can also cause quite disturbance in the mind, so be careful when you go into those worlds. Always practice with someone who's knowledgeable. Don't do things by yourself unless you have an exit strategy. That's what we say in rope play. Always have an exit strategy, even if working with somebody else. Know how you're going to get out of a situation that may not be as comfortable or safe as it could be, because we want to enjoy ourselves and have a good experience. And if there's a hiccup, we need the tools to get ourselves out of that hiccup. And with emotions, that tool is your breath, your awareness, right? Because it's your guidance system. It tells you which direction feels good for you and which direction doesn't. And sometimes it's vague in between because you know what's good for you and you don't want to follow that. I've done that for years, especially when it comes with relationships, because part of me's always been, well, if I end this relationship, what's going to be next? I don't know. There's an unknown. Or if this relationship shifts or changes and goes from intimate to platonic, that is hard. That is challenging because you, at least for myself, I still love people deeply. It's just situation change, desires change, love languages necessary don't match up. And sometimes you need to move on. Sometimes you need to adjust your expectations because you're putting all your own needs onto the other person, and that's not their responsibility. It's your responsibility to know what your needs are and to express those needs and to meet them yourself first. And then through that inner work, it will be met externally as well. And yes, that's not for everybody. Not everybody wants to live that honest with themselves, but I do. And I am not always honest with myself, but I am more and more. And I am quicker and quicker to recognize, to notice when I'm not honest with myself. Even when I don't want to know or recognize it. Because I don't like what my heart is telling me. Or at least my mind doesn't like what my heart is telling me, because it means change. It means big things shifting and adjusting and moving away from how things are now. But unless you let go of certain things in your life, other things can't come in. If you have a full closet, there's no room for more clothes. If you have a full fridge, there's no room for fresh food. And things can become stagnant. Old energies become stagnant. And you don't necessarily have to end the relationship for it to be refreshed. You can have a reset. I've had one relationship over 12 years long, and we've had multiple resets throughout that relationship where we decided, okay, we need to, things happen in each person's life, we need a reset. And that has allowed us to continue that relationship over a long period of time. But really, it was kind of like 4 or 5 mini relationships in that time. But it was the same person. And then as we have experience in life, as we grow, as we expand, we shift within ourselves. And hopefully things as they shift within ourselves will shift in our external world as well in such a way, well, they always match your internal world. I mean, there is that overall, universal what is happening, but then there's your micro world, what you have in your world. A big example for me is everybody's talking about the World Cup. My brother's big into it, he's going to games and things, and when he first told me about FIFA, I had to ask him, you mean soccer, right? Because for my mind, that wasn't correlated yet. That acronym wasn't something that I knew right off the top of my head because I don't care. I love to play soccer. It's a fun thing to do. And I do like watching it occasionally, but I am not interested in spending hours at a time watching a game. That's just not who I am. I much rather go tinker in the workshop or go have sex. It's just everybody has their own interests of things that really resonate with the most. So don't judge it. Be okay with who you are and what you want and what you desire. The problems that come up is when we follow the normal spectrum or the normal pathway of like going through school, getting the higher education, getting a good job, having that family, having the kids, having the house and the car and all these things, which is fine to have. But if that's not what your heart desires, then you have a slight problem. Because that means you're being pulled apart. You're doing the whole physical thing over here, and your heart wants you to go over there. So you're constantly pulling against yourself. So it makes it hard, it makes it tiring, it makes it energetically draining. Because you're doing things you think you need to do, but your heart wants you over here. And sometimes that still overlaps a little bit, it just looks a little off. But when those two come together, that energy helps each other be more expanded. You have more energy to spend because you're not pulling against yourself. You are going the same way. You're doing the things your heart wants you to do, and you're doing the things in the physical. So you're not splitting your energy. You're going into the same direction. So give yourself some compassion if you are splitting yourself. I've noticed that within myself for years. It's taking me over a decade to get my heart and my mind to be in somewhat of an alignment. I still go like, oh, no, oh. I still do the back and I was like, oh, no, I'm going to try and get that back on track. And it's not even trying. For myself, I had to learn to relax. I had to stop trying to figure it out and just follow that inner guidance system and do things like this podcast. I don't know what's going to happen with this. I feel really strange talking to you guys about these things in this context with this title. I feel like I'm just rambling, but I guess it is bringing up things that someone needs to hear. And sometimes, even if it's just myself needing to hear those things, to affirm and to validate that, yes, what I'm doing is what I actually want to do. And part of that is that I want to expand within myself. I want to have a full life experience. I want to be with people that help me to expand, that help me to continue to grow as I help them to continue to grow. And I want to be in a community of people that resonate with my own special kind of frequency. And I know I'm a little bit further on the outlier of things, so I know I'm not for everybody. But for those who do resonate with me, and if you're still watching this, welcome. It's definitely something that is speaking to you and your inner self, your heart space. And thank you for being here and listening and taking in what you need. Not everything that I say is for everybody, but you can pick out what resonates more and leave behind what resonates less. That's the beauty of discernment. That's the beauty of inner awareness and inner knowingness, because you get to have the choice to choose what you want. You don't need to have the generic choices that gets laid out. You can decide, no, I want this and this and this, and this isn't a choice, but I'm still gonna make that choice. Because for me, that is a choice. Not for everybody else. That's fine. But for me, it is. And that's where your heart space can expand, because you make a choice. And not making a choice is still a choice. That's the one that people always forget. That not choosing is still a choice. You're still choosing to stay where you're at. You're still choosing to stay in that situation. You're still choosing to remain at that frequency. And sometimes people think they don't have a choice, like if they have kids, or if they feel like they have responsibility, like they are responsible financially for people, or that is what just stuck with the time. You do have a choice, and the first choice is that you're choosing to be financially responsible, or you're choosing to be responsible for your children. That is still a choice. And in that, you're creating a little bit of freedom, because it's not something that traps you. The other choices may not be something you want. Like an example, if you leave your children and they go into foster care or an orphanage or to an aunt and uncle, not necessarily something most parents want for their kids. But if you're feeling trapped within the situation, realize that there is a choice to stay and take care of your children, so that you can create a little bit of space, a little bit of freedom within that situation. And then through that, you can find the other little ways that you can make a different choice. For instance, having your children, if they're going to school, pack the lunches the night before. So they're getting their own bags ready. And you're telling me your child is 6 or 7 and they can't do it by themselves. You need to teach them. If you're going to do it, involve them. Have the snacks laid out, have the sandwich things laid out, and then show them how to make a sandwich and where the containers are and how to put it in a bag. And then you may find out they don't actually like cheese sandwiches because now they have a choice. You're giving them power and choices of what they can find in their own lives. So by giving yourself more time, because eventually then they can take over and you're not responsible for making the lunches anymore. And then you have now opened up 10, 15 minutes. Some brain power, because you don't have to figure out, what am I going to do today? It may take a little bit of effort. It may take a little bit of involvement. But through that process, you're both creating space and time for yourself, and you're empowering your child or your children. There's always a way to create space if you allow yourself to think differently. If you allow yourself to take a breath, to relax, to calm down and stop the freight train of I have to do, I have to do, I have to do. Take that breath. Take 3. Calm yourself down, even if the world is chaos out there. Cultivate that peace in here. Because that is what will then reflect out there. But when you allow your mind to take over and to just give you that to-do list, that's always endless. There's always more to do. Take those mini vacations. That's what I call them, mini vacations, even if it's just a single breath. That is a mini vacation. That is you feeling into your peace, into your inner space, into your aspect of like giving yourself a hug with the breath. I love you so much. You got this, girl. Okay. No gender. But give yourself that gift of loving yourself. I don't quite know how we got to that subject, but someone needed to hear that and have that space, that reminder that there's always a choice. There's always a way you can create a little bit of space. And that little bit of space will start snowballing and creating more space, and things will start falling into place that you weren't even expecting. Give yourself grace. Give yourself a breath. Give yourself a hug and that love. Thank you for watching. See you all next time. Bye for now.